Welcome to the Hoops and Use podcast, where we delve into professional hardwood happenings along with graduating gridiron gossip. I'm your host, Matthew McFarridge.
And I'm also your host, Dayton Brown. We are here to give you news and opinions on what's going on in the NBA and college football. We, first of all, would like to thank everybody, every single person who was able to listen to the very first episode and who is supporting us thus far, including listening to this episode. We're hoping that we'll be able to make big steps and keep moving forward and keep progressing. It's episode 2. We had a blast during the first episode. And yeah, again, thank you to everybody who has listened so far and who's tuning in right now for the episode. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you, man? How's life since the last episode came out?
I mean, I've been getting a lot of paparazzi at my door and stuff.
Hey,
so, I mean,
that's the come. I mean, you know,
that's the life, man.
we're
Yeah.
right now we are big time podcast stars.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew it was gonna come with that, so it can't be too surprising.
It hit me a little bit harder than I expected, honestly.
Yeah,
like, you know,
I would agree.
just the
I would agree.
outpouring of support and everything. So
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that much. So.
I wasn't either. But yeah, it's been a good week. So, we are gonna be talking with your friend Andruw Johns later on.
Yes,
talking
sir.
some NBA,
Yes, sir.
I believe.
Yeah, we'll have him on a call for our very first open line of the podcast, which we hope to be a staple segment on the show. But yeah, we're going to call up Andruw. He's a huge University of Washington fan, which ties into the Isiah Thomas trade, which just got finalized yesterday. But yeah, we'll delve into that more later on with Andruw, who will be our first guest on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting open line going. Very interested to see his thoughts on everything. Not just with the trade that happened that finally got finalized, but also
Right.
The Western Conference and maybe playoff predictions, stuff like that. We're gonna definitely hit him up with all of that information later on. But the main thing we're gonna talk about today, of course, is college football because Dayton, it officially started last Saturday, but no real good big games. It officially starts this weekend.
This is when the big boys play.
Thursday. Thursday night is the first big time, I guess you could say big time game. Number 2, Ohio State opens up against Indiana. Have a bunch of big games that's coming this Saturday, Labor Day weekend. It's probably my favorite time of the year. Kickoff weekend is just the best.
Me too. Yeah, kickoff weekend for college football, and you might not agree with me. I don't know. I'm not sure how big of a baseball fan you are, but playoff baseball is also one of my very favorite moments.
I do. I'm not a big fan of regular season baseball, but when it comes to playoffs, it's definitely more exciting. So I definitely
it ups it.
Definitely
for sure.
tuning in for that.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do with college football, we're going to preview some of the bigger games, give you some players to look out for, maybe some upset picks and all that. But I think the first game we're going to start with will be the Florida and Michigan game. That's at 3:30, I believe, on Saturday. This game, if they would have played last year, would be a very, very, I think it would be a very big game. I think, Florida's defense was highly touted last year. Their offense was supposed to be better. Turns out it really wasn't. And then Michigan, ever since Jim Harbaugh got there, they've been really, really good. They've improved. Made the Orange Bowl last year. I think they're, a really, really good team. So, Dayton, what do you kind of have for this game, kind of previewing it? Players you're looking for in the game, kind of stuff like that.
I think Michigan is going to be, I think, a much more important game for Michigan than it is for Florida.
I agree.
Mainly because ever since Jim Harbaugh came onto Michigan and became their head coach, all eyes have been on them. All eyes have been on their recruiting class, how they operate on the offense, how they handle their players. Jim Harbaugh is a fantastic coach. The results haven't come quite yet, but I do think that Jim Harbaugh's ultimate plan wasn't to win right away. I think that he wanted to kind of marinate with all of the recruits that he has. So I think his was more of a 3 to 4 year dynasty plan. Yep. Wait 3 to 4 years, build it up, and then after that you have a bunch of years of success. And I think that year, those years of success starts against Florida. So this is going to be a really important game. If Michigan blows this game, if they lose this game, I mean that's just going to be disastrous for them.
I totally agree.
It's going to be hard for them to climb back in. It's still possible, still totally possible. But if you're in the Big Ten and you lose an opening game, I mean that's tough. Even if it is against a top 25 team, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of confidence in Rashawn Gray and Maurice Hurts, defensive lineman for Michigan. I think that they're going to wreak havoc in this game. Michigan is going to control the trenches, especially since Jordan Scarlett, who's the starting running back for Florida, is suspended for the game, which I think is a huge blow for Florida's offense. I think that this game, both teams have questions on defense, mainly in the secondary. I think that they're both talented, but, Michigan is not returning a whole lot of starters, but they are returning guys who played a lot of minutes on defense a season ago. So, it kind of balances out. I think when it comes down to it, when games with these good of teams, it comes down to who has the better coach and coaching staff overall. And I do think Michigan edges out Florida in that regard. So I'm going with Michigan. My prediction for the score is 27-21. I do think it's going to be a close game. But again, I think that Michigan's going to control the trenches. Florida's going to really be missing their I think Jordan Scarlett would have been a really important piece for that, because it can free up the passing game too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Play action and whatnot. So I think Scarlett being out is a bigger deal than most. I think if he was in, Florida would probably be able to pull this game out and win. But at the same time, Michigan's offense is always talented with high caliber skill set players. So I do think Michigan is going to win 27-21.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the score is close to how I predicted it. I kind of had Michigan winning as well. I had Michigan winning by like a touchdown, maybe 8, 9, 10 points, something like that. I think it'll be a close mid-score game, maybe like 28-19 or something like that. Just kind of like I'm thinking it'll be like a defense game. Michigan, they haven't named their starting quarterback, of course. That's Jim Harbaugh's kind of thing. He hasn't really even announced his starting roster yet. They kind of just kind of go with the flow. But I mean, this game is a toss-up if you think about it. I mean, like I said, Florida, they're starting a new quarterback, Felipe Franks. He was highly touted out of high school, but I think when Jim McElwain was hired at Florida, big things were expected. It was like, all right, we had Will Muschamp. He was great. He built up this defense. That defense was great, and it's been great even under McElwain. But the offense was supposed to take a step forward, and it definitely hasn't. And I'm not sure what that says about either Jim McElwain's recruiting or if he's not coaching up the quarterbacks well enough, or anything like that. But if they can get consistent quarterback play, I think Florida can do good this year. I mean, they've made 2 straight SEC title games. That's not really saying much because the SEC East is probably one of the weaker divisions, I guess, in a Power 5 conference. But Michigan kind of has the same problem. I don't know that they have a stud at quarterback. I think Will Spate is back. I believe he started last year for a good bit. He's back, but he hasn't really taken the reins of the offense. They're still trying to decide if they're going to go between him and O'Korn, another guy that's kind of separated himself from the rest of the pack as quarterbacks. But Harbaugh knows what he's doing. Like you said, he's a smart guy. He's kind of bringing in all these talented players and all that, and he's like, all right, wait. So he's giving them experience by playing them. They always rotate guys in 2, 3 deep at every position. And I think that definitely pays off.
Absolutely.
I think Florida, it's interesting when I heard that they were going to start Felipe Franks over Malik Zaire. I mean, Malik Zaire transfers from Notre Dame. He could have been the starter there. And he transfers from there to go to Florida. And it's just interesting that they go with Felipe Franks. I guess they're looking for the face of their franchise past just this year. And maybe they think Franks is that guy, but I don't know. The big thing that makes Michigan stand out to me, I think they can win by 7 to 10 points, maybe even more than that. Florida has 10 guys suspended, not just Jordan Scarlett, but 10 guys. I mean, that's Antonio Callaway, their star wide receiver, is out for this game. So that doesn't really give me a confidence boost for Felipe Franks to have probably his best running back and his best wide receiver not playing. It's not a big confidence boost for a guy that's making his first start in a big game against a top 25 team. So we'll see. I do think Michigan will dominate the game, I think, but I think the score will be a lot closer than maybe some people expect, because Florida's defense is still, they've lost a lot of talent, but their defense is still pretty solid.
Yeah, and I think both teams are going to be cautious for the exact reasons as you just said. I don't think either team is confident enough in their quarterback to let them kind of take control of the game per se, and both defenses are actually really good.
Yeah. I
So
totally agree.
got
I
to be
think
cautious. Yeah.
even though Michigan lost Bill Peppers, that utility player, offense, defense, special teams, I think
Right.
that they're going to be able to fill it in because they have star players on that team. They have good talent. So
They're
it'd be
Michigan.
it's a Michigan. I mean, they just
Yeah.
reload. They reload.
Exactly.
Especially under Jim Harbaugh, he knows how to recruit for sure.
Yep. Yep. So wait, what's your score prediction?
Final score, I'll go 28-19.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
kind of like 9 point game, something like that.
Respectable. Yeah.
Like I said, I think Michigan
Hopefully
will
it's close.
dominate the
Yeah.
game. Like as far as like they should win by a lot more than that probably, but
Right.
I'm not counting
Maybe.
out Florida.
Maybe Florida sneaks in a last-second touchdown.
Yeah, something like that.
Score a
Keep it
little
kind
bit
of
closer.
close.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'll be one of the more interesting games. I think both teams are also trying to find their identities because both of those teams are, I would say, more Michigan than Florida, but both of those teams are very tradition-based football teams in college.
They are.
Super huge. But every team in that realm has some sort of identity. Alabama, you always know that their offensive line is going to be good. They're going to have a good running back. LSU is going to have a really good secondary as well as like Heisman candidate running back.
Oh yeah.
Both of these teams have kind of lost their identity over the past few years. So I think whoever ends up winning this game is going to help cement what kind of tradition they're going for, what kind of identity the team wants.
Absolutely.
And again, I think Jim Harbaugh is such a great coach that he's going to be able to do that. And like I said, I think that this has been a plan throughout. Obviously, he wants to win the championship every year, but I think that he realized that we're not going to be able to make the playoffs per se right away when he got hired as a coach. So I think that he's been building it up. And so they could be a much better team than like an 11th ranked, honestly.
Right, exactly. But like you said, I mean, the Big Ten, that division that they're in is so tough. I mean, they got Ohio State, they got Penn State in that division. I mean, you look across to the West Division, I guess is what it is. You got Wisconsin over there. Yeah. I mean, the Big Ten's deep.
They are. Yeah.
So it'll be definitely interesting to see if Michigan, if they lose this game, it might be hard for them to make the playoff. I think just because I don't see Florida. Yeah. I see Florida maybe having 2 or 3 losses this year.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how far. I think this game will be one of their losses. But if Michigan somehow loses this game to Florida, and Florida still loses 2 or 3 more games, that doesn't look good for their college football playoff resume.
That really hurts their resume.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they beat Ohio State, unless they beat Penn State, unless they beat Wisconsin, all those big teams.
Yeah, which is going to be tough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Whether or not they win this game or not. Going to another SEC team that is going to be playing. LSU, 13th ranked team, is going to be going up against technically not hosting, but technically they are hosting BYU, who's already 1-0. They defeated Portland State. I believe it was last Thursday.
It was.
The game is in the Superdome. So technically, again, like I said, not a home game for LSU, but it's also in their home state.
Yeah, it is.
So shout out to the New Orleans Saints, who we both write for.
Shout out.
Go ahead and check them out. They're going to be playing in their stadium, which is going to be always exciting. I love when college teams play in NFL stadium.
Yeah, I actually went to this is completely off topic, but a couple years ago I went to the Sugar Bowl. It was Oklahoma and Alabama. My little sister was in the marching band in high school, and her high school band went and played in the parade there and played at halftime and all that different stuff. So that was really cool. That was the year Oklahoma like completely stomped Alabama because Alabama didn't make the national title game that year.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah, so Oklahoma. I mean, they wiped the floor with them. I think Trevor Knight led that offense, and it was crazy. But that stadium, like you said, is great. Interesting that they're playing there. LSU has to travel, I think, 83 miles or something like that to travel, whereas BYU has to travel like 1,800 miles to get to LSU or to get to the Superdome. Yep. So
that is going to be
that'd be interesting.
How do you think the game's going to turn out?
I think it'll be actually a good game.
Okay.
I really like LSU's offensive coordinator hire of Matt Canada. He was with Pitt last year. He led Nate Peterman. Nate Peterman actually started his career at Tennessee. I'm a big Tennessee fan, of course. He started his career there. I think he went like 0-2, 0-3 as a starter. He did not do well. Then Josh Dobbs, of course, came in and kind of lit it up, and he became the starter for 4 years. But Nate Peterman transferred to Pitt, and I didn't think Pitt was going to be necessarily that good. I didn't think he would ever see the field, but he ended up being, I think, a third, fourth round draft pick, and all that different stuff. But Matt Canada knows how to coach up some offense. He's been around a bunch of different guys everywhere he's been. I think he has like 25 years experience, and he just has a great resume as far as coaching up high-powered, explosive offenses.
Yeah.
I think he'll do good things at LSU. This year, I don't know. I don't know that they have a quarterback that can necessarily take them to great heights. I think Danny Etling is supposed to be the starter in this game for LSU, unless is that right? Do you know if that's?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I read too.
I'm not a big. I don't really know if Danny Etling can do anything. That's a Purdue transfer. He couldn't do it at Purdue. What makes you think he's going to do it in an SEC school?
Yeah.
LSU only returns 11 starters to the team, 5 defensive starters. They're down Arden Key, arguably their best player. I think he's still is he on the team, or I know he left the team for a good part of the offseason. I'm not sure if he came back or not.
Who?
Arden Key for LSU, their defensive end.
You know what? I actually haven't heard any updates on him.
Okay, I haven't heard anything either. Like I said, I know he left the team and all the different stuff, but they lost a lot of defensive talent to the NFL. They lost a lot of offensive talent. Darius Geis obviously is going to be a good plug-in. He definitely did well last year when Fournette was out. But I don't know if I don't know if LSU's offense is going to be great this year, just because I don't think that they have the offensive pieces in place yet. Canada's a good hire down the road. It'll do good things for Ed Orgeron to have him on his side. But I think in BYU, I mean, even though they're traveling 1,800 miles, they did play last week, so they kind of had that first week jitters out of them. And I think they know what they can. I think they know what they need to do to win. That's the thing.
Yes. Yeah.
BYU's never an easy win. They always compete with people that they play against. And speaking of Arden Key, I just wrote down a random stat here. I don't know why I didn't say it earlier. The last time he did not play for that defense, LSU gave up 39 points and almost 500 yards of offense to Texas A&M.
Wow. That was against A&M too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it'll be a close game. I think BYU will definitely give LSU a stretch, but I think LSU wins by maybe a field goal. I'll say the score will be 24-21, something like that. I think BYU will definitely move the ball. I think LSU is kind of a really, really good, like you said, they always have good, strong defensive backs and a good, strong defensive line. And like I said, I think if they can just give the ball to Darius Geis about 50 times, they'll win the game. He'll get a couple touchdowns. He'll definitely put himself up there on the Heisman board early in the season. But yeah, I have them winning by a field goal. So. What about you, man? What do you have for that?
So just touch up on Arden Key. He is ruled out. He is on the team. He rejoined the team.
Okay.
He's ruled out of the game though, and he is just doing non-contact drills.
Okay.
So I don't think he's gonna actually play for the team for a few weeks. It seems like
that could be huge.
He is technically with the team. And this was yesterday too when he was doing the non-contact drills. So it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah. BYU very local to me, Portland State. I actually have a lot of friends that attend Portland State. So I always think that's interesting when they play high caliber teams. But BYU's offense, look, BYU has one of the best front sevens in the country. One of the least talked about best front sevens in the country for sure. But their offense is going to be the key, and they looked really shaky against Portland State. They only were able to gain 365 yards total for the entire game against an FCS team. A little bit weak. That's no offense to Portland State, but it is an FCS team going up against a FBS
kind of a big
team.
Gap in talent there.
Exactly, yeah. But I think that, again, like you said, Darius Geis is going to be the key. I think LSU is really going to tear it up against them, and I think ultimately what it's going to come down to, other than Darius Geis playing well, is BYU rested up enough to go up against an SEC team in LSU, arguably the second best team in the SEC. And comparing that to them going up against Portland State, is the talent gap between BYU's last game to now against LSU, is that going to be an issue? Is LSU going to be more rested up and refreshed than BYU? I think that those are going to be pretty big factors, mainly because usually I don't care about that stuff because it's it's football's football. They're going to go out there and play. It doesn't matter. But this is, again, the gap between the team BYU played a week ago till now. That's huge. So I have LSU winning 30-17, and I have a lot of confidence in Darius Geis. Now he's going to how he's going to perform. Usually LSU doesn't have a great quarterback. Who was their quarterback as last season, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago?
Oh gosh, what's that kid's name? I mean, I know Danny Etling played a lot last year as well. But I mean, LSU, they really haven't had a good quarterback since Medenberg went there.
Medenberger, yeah. I'm trying to think. What was his name? Anyway, but yeah, they usually never have a great quarterback. Kind of the same with Alabama. That's why I think it's so interesting that Alabama and LSU do so well, is because Brandon Harris. Brandon Harris.
Brandon Harris. Yeah, inconsistent. So inconsistent.
Yeah, he's really inconsistent. Like he might throw a few yards here and there, but overall he was just, they had to keep running the ball and they had to rely on their defense. That's why they were such a poor team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have LSU winning 30-17. Is going to be a really good starting game for them against BYU. But again, BYU is one of the best front sevens in the league, honestly.
Yeah.
On paper, at least. So it's going to be interesting.
And they do every year. BYU always has a good front seven.
Yes.
I think that will make a big impact. You know, BYU is a Mormon college. A lot of their players, when they first go to college, they go on their 2-year mission trip, I guess. Right. So a lot of their freshmen on the team are really 20 and 21-year-olds, which is really impressive. Which is you know, so all that means their upperclassmen are 23, 24, 25 years old maybe. And so I mean, they're a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. They've had that a little bit more experience and all the different stuff. So I mean, I don't think BYU is going to be a cakewalk, like you said. They never are. You have a little bit higher scoring and more of a spread game.
Yeah.
But yeah, BYU's offense, they didn't look too hot last week. But again, they have kind of that first week jitters. They kind of know what to expect. I don't think LSU really does until maybe after the first or second quarter of this game. So they may pull away in the second half, though, for sure.
Yep. And I think that's ultimately that's what's going to happen. Is
right.
First half is going to be really shaky for both teams, but once they get comfortable into the game, they just kind of fire out the cannon.
Right.
So.
I can definitely see that happening for sure. You know, it could kind of go either way. You never know with LSU.
Yep.
They're kind of one of those inconsistent teams that either start off hot or fade fast, or start off slow and then come on hot in the middle of the year. So we'll see how that game goes.
It's been like that ever since they won the championship.
Yeah.
What was it, like 7 or so?
07 when they played Alabama.
10 years ago. Wow.
Was it 07?
Yeah, I think so. It must have been. I was thinking like closer to. No, you're right. I think because Alabama dominated like 09 to 12. So, it must have been like 07. Wow, 10 years ago. Jeez.
Yeah, it's been a good while.
It's been a minute for sure.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting game for sure. Again, it's basically a home game for LSU. Let's see if they can take advantage of that. Next game we kind of have on the docket is a top 25 matchup. I think they're both kind of ranked in the 20, 22, 25 mark. West Virginia versus Virginia Tech.
Yes.
I got to see Virginia Tech, I believe it was last year, in the battle at Bristol against Tennessee. I was at that game, the largest college football game in history. Amazing sight. Justin Fuente's first year, he was at Memphis with Paxton Lynch and all that.
Right.
And West Virginia, I mean, they're always a solid top 25 team. Dana Holgorsen always has a good team, always has a good offense. So what do you kind of see in this game, Dayton? What are you kind of looking for?
Well, both teams are always high-flying, high-scoring offenses, especially West Virginia. They're always fun to watch. I think Virginia Tech as well, more so than ever, honestly. They both have very young quarterbacks, though. I think that's the thing. I believe both of them are freshmen, or at least redshirt freshmen, who haven't had a lot of playing time. I think ultimately due to that, obviously Will Grier is going to be starting for West Virginia.
Right.
And West Virginia always seems to have a quarterback who just has an arm that he can just chuck it.
Right.
And I think Will Grier is another one of those guys. But I think ultimately it boils down to which secondary is going to be better. Because I don't think this is a West Virginia Tech game. This isn't going to be one in the trenches. This is not an SEC game. This isn't any of that. Obviously, trenches are still important, but at the end of the day, it's going to be one through the air. And I think that Virginia Tech has a much better secondary. I think that they have some NFL talent in that secondary. So I kind of I flop back and forth with this game just because, again, West Virginia is 22, Virginia Tech is 21. It's going to be tough, but I have Virginia Tech winning 41-34. I do think it's going to be a really high scoring game.
Yeah, I definitely agree to be high scoring for sure.
Yeah.
I have West Virginia winning by 7. I don't really have a final score, maybe
Okay.
38-31, something like that. It'll definitely be high score, maybe even to the 40s.
Yeah.
This is a rivalry game. They haven't really played, I think in the past 12 or 13 years is the last time they played. But this is a rivalry game. Like I said, Dana Holgerson's offense, Bud Foster, Virginia Tech's defensive coordinator, always has a great defense, or they at least always play up to a really high potential, even though they might not be highly touted guys out of high school. He definitely knows how to. He's kind of one of those coaches that just knows how to get to his players.
Right.
He definitely always does that. So, I think Justin Fuente is a great offensive coach. I mean, you saw what he did with Paxton Lynch at Memphis, and obviously Paxton Lynch hasn't apparently done that great with the Denver Broncos.
Right, hasn't translated well.
Have them kind of doubting if they should have drafted him in the second round a couple years ago, but I really do think that Virginia Tech could very well get back to those glory days they had under Frank Beamer. I think Justin Fuente can get them back there. Dana Holgerson, again, always has a good squad. I just think that, with that experienced quarterback, Will Grier, I don't know how you pronounce his name. I think it's Greer. He played at Florida for a couple games a couple years ago before he had to transfer after that drug suspension and all that. He left the school, transferred, sat out last year, I believe. I think he's a really, really good talent. Big arm. Of course, I'm a Tennessee fan, so they've kind of dominated us the past 10, 12 years. And so seeing him, he dominated us a couple years ago. So I definitely think that will translate. Dana Holgerson knows how to just plug in a guy at quarterback and keep rolling. They get a new quarterback every other year, and they just keep rolling. They get 9, 10 wins, 10, 11 wins. So, like I said, I think West Virginia is just going to win by like maybe 7 points. Might be closer than that. 35, 41 points is going to be the winning score, the winning team score, I think. So
I think first team to 40 points is going to win the game.
Yeah,
which is crazy to say because like that's so high, such a high scoring game.
Yeah.
I mean, college is obviously a little bit different than the NFL. You're going to have more possessions. You're going to have more scores. That's why college football is so much more exciting, honestly, to me, to watch. Like NFL is great to watch. I think college football edges it out in terms of excitement just because you see a lot more points scored. And last season's opening game, what was that? Texas Notre Dame, I believe.
I believe so.
That went into like triple overtime.
Yep.
That was one of the best games I've ever seen. I mean, granted, neither team did well that season going forward, but that was one of the best games. And it was opening night. That's the thing about opening night is we don't know how good or how bad these teams are truly going to be. Exactly. We can just really go off of preseason rankings and what we see on paper. So anything can surprise us at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you never really know what to expect that first week for sure.
Yeah. So moving on to the next game before we get to the granddaddy of them all, we have your boys, number 25 ranked Tennessee Volunteers, going up against Georgia Tech. This is going to be a fun game.
Oh yeah,
this is a Monday night game, right?
It is. It's actually the
Monday night game.
It's the only game on Monday actually. It's at 8 o'clock,
that's right because
so.
they have pretty much the entire college football world is going to be watching them.
Exactly.
This is going to be the second game played in the brand new Mercedes. What is it? The Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, in Atlanta.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, in Atlanta. The first one is going to be the next game that we'll get to. But yeah, Tennessee against Georgia Tech. Your guys, you could be as biased or as unbiased as you want, man. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
Yeah, when I was trying to come up with some teams to talk about, I was like, we have to talk about this game. Not only because it's my boys Tennessee, go Vols, by the way, but it's the only game on Monday. It's a primetime game. And it's definitely a year of transition. I think this is the big year for Butch Jones in Tennessee. He has to, last year we were the favorites to win the SEC East, and we did not capitalize that. We lost a lot of experience, a lot of talent, and we just couldn't get over the hump last year. So this year has a lot of people just kind of beat up on Tennessee. They're saying this is the year Butch Jones gets fired. But he made a lot of tweaks to his coaching staff. He brought in Brady Hoke, the defensive line coach. We got a new offensive coordinator, Larry Scott, who was formerly coach at Miami, Florida. Yep. We're breaking in a lot of new talent. We have a new quarterback going to be starting. We have John Kelly's taking over the running back position for Alvin Kamara. We have defensive issues from last year. We had a lot of injuries. We have a few injuries this year, kind of plaguing us early on. But I definitely think this would be an interesting game just because you don't see an offense like Georgia Tech's very often anymore. Georgia Tech and Navy are really the only two triple option teams that you can think of and go they do that consistently week after week, and you still can't stop them because you don't know what's coming.
They run the same offense my high school football team ran too, which was always interesting to run. But usually you mainly see it, not even nowadays, that often in high school. So the fact that we're seeing it in college is pretty crazy.
And it's crazy you say that. My high school actually also ran the triple option. My whole 4 years. Nice. I think we won 3 total games in 4 years.
That's the thing. My high school football team was awful too. We won. We won like 4 games the 3 years I was there or whatever.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's crazy that it doesn't seem to work in high school, but in college you can still, if you have the right players there and the right speed. Yeah. Obviously, it's not just the offense. Georgia Tech's defense is supposed to be really good this year, but their offense is the focal point because they're just ball control. If you can't stop them, they'll wind 8-10 minutes off the clock just by going down the field. It's insane how they do that.
Yeah.
They did lose their leading rusher to suspension. I think he got dismissed from the team, Jedrick Mills.
Yes, Jedrick Mills. Yep.
But let's be honest. I mean, it's Georgia Tech. It's a triple option. They have like 18 million running backs on that roster.
Yeah.
And I think if you went and you got onto that team, you could start running back on that team. It's built for running backs. That's what it is. You also have to have a good quarterback, of course, and that's going to be interesting because they have 3 young guys that haven't, I don't think have any experience at all. So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. But their defense is supposed to be really good. It's going to be a matter of, can Tennessee's quarterback stay poised? I think it's going to be they're going to split the reps between Quentin Dormady and Jarrett Guarantano, however you pronounce his name. I'm still trying to learn as well. I don't know. I think it'll be a good game. I'm going to actually be at the game, so I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
I'm excited to see this team play. I'm biased. I'm going with a biased pick. I'm picking Tennessee to win by like 6 points. It'll be a close game. 29-23, something like that. 29-24. I don't know how. I think I think Tennessee will take the lead. Georgia Tech will probably score a couple touchdowns, keep our offense off the field, and I just hope our defense is better than last year. I think our defense last year was probably worse than the Saints, and that is saying something because you know how bad the Saints defense has been recently.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm going with Tennessee. 29-24. What about you, man? What do you see?
Yeah, I was going to hit on Tennessee's defense being their scapegoat a season ago because I said this in the last podcast. I had Tennessee as my surprise team last year to make the playoffs, and they could have if their defense would have played pretty well because Josh Dobbs tore it up last season.
He did.
I do think that their defense is going to be better. At least it better be better for them.
It has to be.
Want a chance at anything. I think Jedrick Mills being out, like you said, doesn't hurt them as much as it usually would if a team's leading rusher goes down. But I do think it benefits Tennessee more so than not, I guess. Even though they do have a lot more talented running backs on the team, your leading rusher being out is a big blow. I think John Kelly for Tennessee is going to be able to handle his own. But both teams are going to be starting new quarterbacks, obviously more important for Tennessee than Georgia Tech because they do run the ball a lot more often. But I think it'll come down to the better coach team as it did against Michigan and Florida. And I do think Tennessee is a lot better on paper. I do think that they recruit a lot better. So I actually have Tennessee winning 35-24. Don't think it'll be as close of a game as you're saying. And I guess technically this is more of a home game for Georgia Tech than it is for Tennessee. But
it is
down south. I think that both are going to be I don't think either team has too big of an advantage. So I don't think that's really a factor. Because when games are this close, you have to look for the little things that are going to be factors in. Right. And I do think that Tennessee is actually going to win better than I think most people think. I think it's not going to be as close as a lot of people are predicting. I have them, 35-24. I think it's going to be double.
I sure hope so. I think if Tennessee can go up early, if Tennessee can move the ball early, they've shown promise. I went to the spring game this year. Their quarterbacks did show promise in the one half they did play. Second half got rained out. There was big storms coming in, but I think the offensive system is going to be good. It's not really much change. Larry Scott was already on the team as a offensive assistant, and so whenever Mike DeBoer left to go to Indiana, which is his, I think he's from Indiana, so that was kind of like a home move. They moved Larry Scott from tight ends and special teams coordinator up. We finally have a quarterback coach. We haven't had one at all under Butch Jones, so we finally have a quarterback coach to coach up these young quarterbacks. I think that makes a world of a difference if you have a quarterback coach that can actually be hands on with the quarterbacks, and just that's his one primary focus. But I'm really excited for this game. I think if Tennessee goes up, by 14 or 21 points early, Georgia Tech can't win. I don't think, because they're going to have to start passing the ball. And I think Tennessee's defensive secondary is going to be great this year. I think it'll be much, much improved. The run defense, I'm still not sold on, but I think the pass defense will be much, much improved from last year.
Hopefully, right?
It has to be. The way I see it, it has to be. It can't be any worse than last year. There's no way it's possible. Please.
Right.
Please.
Yeah. At least you're hoping.
I'm hoping.
We're all hoping, honestly.
I'm hoping. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to the big game. I would kind of save this one for the end just because it is the big game. Number 1, Alabama. Number 3, Florida State. Dayton, what do you take from this game? I mean, is ACC gonna keep their kind of streak? I think they've kind of had the upper hand against head to head at least against SEC recently, or is Alabama gonna go ahead and finally maybe swing the tide back in the SEC's favor?
There's so much that goes into this game, not only because it's a huge game, not only because it's a 1 versus 3, not only because it's the first game in a brand new stadium, not only because it's the first weekend, but this is going to have so many implications on the season going ahead. Granted, whichever team loses, they're only going to be knocked back a few spots, but one of these teams who usually, I think, talent-wise, if you put them in any other season where they don't go head-to-head in the first game, I think both of these teams go undefeated. One of these teams is going to have to lose in the very first game of the season. That's the crazy part to me.
Oh, yeah.
Both of these teams, talent-wise, coaching-wise, they could go undefeated easily. But one of these teams is going to have to lose in the first game of the season. I don't know how that's going to do. So this is a huge game. I think it's going to end up being – could change. Obviously, on paper right now, it's going to be the biggest non-playoff game of the season. I think it might stay that way throughout this. I mean, there are going to be a lot of good matchups later on.
It'll be hard to top. It'll be hard to top.
Yeah, it'll be hard to top for sure. I think talent-wise, these are the best 2 teams. I think Florida State edges out Ohio State in terms of talent. Now, Alabama does have a new offensive coordinator, but that hasn't hurt them in the past. They've gone through a few here and there just because they always hire great guys who end up getting better jobs. Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian. That could be shaky, but again, they always have a fantastic offensive line. They always win the trenches. I think that's why they've never their quarterback issues have never really hurt them that much, is because their quarterbacks don't get sacked a whole lot. They have a lot more time in the pocket.
Right.
And Bo Scarborough is a Heisman candidate, and he's going to be behind an All-American offensive line. So I think that's going to help. So it depends on FSU's front 7, but we know they have the best secondary in the country.
Oh, yeah, that's a given.
That. They have the best secondary. So I expect Bo Scarborough to run the ball a whole lot, and if Jalen Hurts is going to pass the ball, apparently he's gotten better over the offseason, but like I said before the podcast, every coaching staff is going to say that their quarterback got better over the offseason in terms of passing. So it'll be interesting to see how Jalen Hurts does against this fantastic defensive backcourt. Derwin James might get an interception, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to throw his way. It depends on how Florida State plays him and what Alabama runs. But their receiving core is very inexperienced, and that hurts Jalen Hurts as well. Like, it would be one thing if Jalen Hurts, who has struggled in the past, is going to be throwing the ball to, like Amari Cooper, Julio Jones type talent that Alabama's had in the past. But 3 of 4 of the wide receivers for Alabama haven't started a game in their career. Or, 3 of the 4 main ones that they're going to be using have not started a game in their career. But I think Alabama, Nick Saban, best coach out there, he's going to be able to control the game by going down in the trenches, running the ball with Bo Scarborough. I think special teams is going to be really important in this game. Who's going to kick more field goals and whatnot. I think that's going to be really important. But controlling the trenches is the ultimate key for this game. And don't be surprised if Hurts ends up getting a deep bomb on FSU to kind of pull away. I have Alabama winning this game. It's not as close as I think it ultimately should be or will be. I have them winning 34-24, and I do think that's going to be because of a long bomb by Jalen Hurts. I think that he's going to find a way to get one over the FSU secondary, and I do think that they're going to have that field goal is going to be key. Like if that touchdown doesn't happen, I think that then they win by a field goal, 27-24.
Yeah.
But that's how I see it going down. It's going to be a fantastic game, though. I'm so excited.
Oh, it is. I mean, this is obviously since last year when we saw this, we was like, this is going to be a great game. Like ever since this game was announced, this is going to be one of the kickoff games. It's been like, oh wow, this is going to be a good game. Yeah. I mean, you talked about it. Jalen Hurts, he has to improve as a passer. There was times at the end of the year last year they did not trust him to throw the ball. And I think that's eventually what led to them losing the title game. They could not count on Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. I mean, granted, they were still 1 second away from winning. They had the lead up until 1 second was left. So, I mean, very, very well, but could have still won that game.
Right. But when the other team's quarterback is Deshaun Watson, it's you need your quarterback to step up and be that guy, so.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So listen to this. Listen to these names that Alabama has lost. They lost 10 players drafted last year. You got Marlon Humphrey, cornerback. Yep. You got Jonathan Allen, defensive lineman. Tight end O.J. Howard. Reuben Foster.
Yep.
Cam Robinson. Ryan Anderson. Dalvin Tomlinson. And also had Eddie Jackson drafted. So you had all those players. And Alabama always loses a lot of talent, but to have 10 players go in the first 4 rounds, I believe, of the draft is insane. That's like almost unheard of. I believe like Kentucky in the NBA draft a couple years ago, they had like 4 of the top 10 picks or 4 of the 4 first round, 5 first round picks or something like that, and that was a record breaker. Alabama just always reloads, and Nick Saban, ever since he's been at Alabama, has never lost a season opener at a neutral site.
Okay.
That's a really big stat. I mean, they played USC. Was it last year?
Yeah, they won like 52-6 or something.
Yeah, it was. Everybody thought, oh, USC's overhyped again, and then USC again. That just goes to show how good Alabama is. USC ended up winning the Rose Bowl last year. I mean, USC was not a bad team last year. It was just they were just outplayed and outmatched. Bo Scarborough is going to be big for Alabama. I think he is going to be, he is a Heisman candidate. I think he's going to help spell Jalen Hurts, give him the ball. They always have good running backs. I think the big key is DeAndre Francois for Florida State, their quarterback. Yeah. How is he going to handle this? He played in some big games last year, and he played well last year. And he's definitely, an explosive player. He can run. He can throw the deep bomb. He has a strong arm. It's going to be a matter of will Jimbo Fisher put him in the spots that he needs to win the game. That's going to be the main thing. Florida State's defense is good. Like you said, their secondary is probably the best in the nation. Of course, Derwin James, great talent. I think he's going to help lead Florida State to the victory. I think Florida State will beat Alabama. Nick Saban has to lose an opener at a neutral site at some point in his career, doesn't he? Eventually, you would think he would have to. I mean, if he doesn't, he is probably one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Right.
But I still see. I just think Florida State is going to have a lot of hype around this game. It's hard to pick against Alabama. I'm an SEC fan, but I'm not going to make that just because I'm not going to make that homer pick. I'm not a big fan of Florida State, but I think they have enough talent to compete against Alabama. Maybe one of the only teams in the nation that can actually compete with Alabama talent-wise year after year. Jimbo's a great coach.
Jimbo!
Thank you, Jimbo!
Every time you say his name, I'm saying Jimbo!
All right. I have Florida State winning 35-34.
Okay.
I think it'll be maybe a last 2-minute touchdown by them to win the game. It would be really, really sad for Alabama, though, if they lost the title game by 1 point and they lose this game by 1 point, both the ACC teams. That's how I see it playing out. It'd be crazy if it happened like that. It's going to be a good game. I mean, I'm super, super psyched about it. Saturday night, I know I'll be home. I'll be home alone. I'll be sitting on the couch with my dog and just watching the game. It's going to be so much.
One of
so much
my
hype.
favorite things to ever do is just chill and watch college. Like I said, college football rarely ever disappoints you, right?
Always.
The only time I remember a college football game disappointing me in terms of I was super excited to see what the outcome was going to be was when Alabama and LSU used to play each other. It must have been like 10 years ago when LSU, because the games were like 10-9 or 7-3 or like 6. It was like 9-3. They would only kick field goals
when the SEC was predominantly
Yes.
defense, when it was
Yes.
defense heavy. And then that changed in the span of like 2 years, and
Yep.
you started having high flying offenses again. So
Yeah. But then again, I mean, like watching defensives perform that well also is pretty exciting. So
it
like,
is.
you're not screwed either way.
Kind of makes for a boring
super
game
excited.
sometimes. Like I'm not a fan of LSU or Alabama, but watching that kind of game, especially when they played that one year and I think LSU won 9-6 or something like that, and then they had the rematch in the title game, and Alabama I think won 21-0. I think Alabama just shut down LSU. Like seeing Alabama's defense be that good, they were that good last year. They could have very well shut out a lot of people last year, but it's just the offensive game in college is crazy. How there's always enough talent on any team to put up points. This goes to show how much talent has spread, and the spread offense and all the different stuff has opened up the college game.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm pumped for this game.
Oh yeah,
I mean, all the games are going to be good, but this game, even if it like ends in a blowout, like everything leading up to the game is just going to be incredible at the very least.
Absolutely. No, like I said, if Florida State wins this, ACC will have bragging rights. They're like, we beat your best team, because outside of Alabama, there's not really a great team in the SEC, especially lately, but more importantly this year.
Yeah.
I don't see a team competing with Alabama again this year in the SEC.
Me neither, honestly. Usually they never do. The only team, like I said, that would be able to is LSU, and that's only because they're going to be able to compete at least somewhat in the trenches with Alabama.
Yeah, that's one of the few teams right there, for sure. So we're gonna kind of wrap up this segment here with Dayton. Let's go with 3 guys this week that you think are going to show out, going to have big games, kind of make a name for themselves. Maybe some big name players, maybe some small name players, anything like that. Who you got for your 3?
Let's quick hit these 3 guys. Yeah. I'm super excited for this part, just because I really like highlighting certain players, because the Heisman Trophy race I think this year is wide open, and it's going to be really fun to watch. First guy is going to be Darius Geis. Kind of talked about him earlier, from LSU. So Leonard Fournette was obviously the best running back last year in college football when he was healthy, and Darius Geis was his backup. Darius Geis still rushed for over 1,000 yards, and he had 7.6 yards per carry last season. That's incredible. That's fantastic.
Insane numbers, yeah.
So the fact that he's going to be getting the majority of the carries, and he's going to be the starting running back, I see him rushing for at least 100 yards. He could get 150 against BYU. Even though their front seven is really strong, I could see him getting a lot of yards. Sam Darnold is my second guy, quarterback out of USC.
You're high on him. You're high on him.
High on Darnold. Love my boy Darnold. I think he's going to tear. Here's the thing: USC is going up against Western Michigan. He's going to tear them up. He's going to shred them to pieces. He's going to show the nation what he's all about.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's going to be anything, because he didn't play in the 52-6 blowout against Alabama a season ago. That was Max Browning, who was the starting quarterback
at that time
for USC at that time, and then that led to, or eventually it was a few weeks later, led to Darnold being the starter. So I do think Darnold is going to come out really strong. And then my other one is another quarterback out of the Pac-12, Luke Falk. It's quarterback for Washington State University. He's also on the Heisman watch, believe it or not. I think he's a top 10 candidate at this point. They're also going up against a lowly team, FCS team, Montana State. Washington State every year. Connor what was his name? Connor something. One of their quarterback, Washington State, he broke the record for most passing yards in the season. This was a few years ago.
Right.
Washington State always finds a way to have high-caliber quarterbacks who are able to throw the ball, similar to West Virginia in that aspect. So I think Luke Falk is going to pass for – I think he's going to get close to 500 yards against Montana State when they pull him out. But he's just a gunslinger. He's going to tear it up. What about you, man? What's your 3?
Yeah, we just talked about him. Derwin James for Florida State, that's safety. Probably the best safety in the league, going to be a top 5 pick when he goes pro. Again, Jalen Hurts, is he an improved passer?
Right.
We will see. And like you said, they might not throw his way. And he very well might not get thrown that way. But just by that, I think he's still going to make enough plays. He could come on the blitz, maybe force a fumble. He might get interception on a tip or something like that. I don't know. I think he's going to have a big game. I think, like I said, I think he leads them to victory over Alabama. Will Grier, West Virginia. We talked about him as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw him at Florida. I think he's a good talent. I think if he would have stayed at Florida, he would be their starting quarterback right now. I think him being in Dana Holgerson's offense is big. They're just gonna light it up. I think they're gonna put up big numbers this year. Especially, I think he'll throw 400 yards this week, and he has some good weapons around him for sure. And then I got Shane Buechele from Texas, the quarterback there. I think he's a sophomore this year. Tom Herman's first year down in Texas, and I think they're going up against Maryland, I believe. I don't know how Maryland's defense is, but I just think Shane Buechele is going to have a big game in his first game with Tom Herman. I think Tom Herman knows how to make the quarterback position excel. He did great things at Houston with Ward there. So we'll see. But I definitely think Shane Buechele is going to have a big game as well.
It's always interesting to see Texas. So, like I said, season ago, Texas was
they started hot.
That game was fantastic.
Started hot.
Fall off and new head coach there. So that's going to be interesting to see.
It will for sure.
How about an upset game? Give me a game where you have a big upset. Obviously, you have Florida State over Alabama as one of,
and that's an upset. But
give me another upset.
Go a little bit deeper than that. There's a lot of talk around Georgia this year. Georgia Bulldogs, second year for Kirby Smart, Jacob Eason, 1 year better. They got probably one of the best backfield duos in the nation with Sony Michel and Nick Chubb.
Yep.
So there's a lot of talk about them, but there's a lot of talk about Tennessee last year, and I am still not 100%. We played Georgia Opens with Appalachian State. Watch out for them. Tennessee played them last year. I don't know how we won that game. We did in overtime. That was crazy.
Josh Dobbs saved the day for you guys.
I think it was actually Jalen Hurd that saved the day. I think he recovered a fumble in the end zone, I believe, for a touchdown in overtime.
I think you're right, yeah.
Georgia has good players, and again, but I'm not sold on Kirby Smart yet. I think, and I'm not sold on Jacob Eason yet. I don't know that Jacob Eason is. I think we talked about this last week, I believe, or I was talking to somebody about this. I don't think that he is necessarily a great leader. A lot of the people on the team around him don't really view him as a great leader. Everybody said he was going to be the next Matt Stafford, and he has the Stafford arm, but I don't think so. App State has a good program. Everybody looks back to when they were an FCS school and they beat Michigan, but they've always been a tough play. And now being a Division I school, they have a good defense, and I think they stopped Tennessee's run game last year. It's supposed to be one of the best run games in the nation last year, and they stopped them. Yeah. And I think they can very well slow down Georgia's run game. It'll be I think a mid-score game. I think it'll be maybe 21-19 or 21-17. I'm sorry. But I think Appalachian State might pull up the upset against Georgia.
That would be huge. Obviously, we all know Appalachian State defeating Michigan. That was about 10 years ago as well. Back in
06. I think it was 06 or 07. It's somewhere in there. Again, it's been a decade. It's hard to remember.
Yeah, which was one of arguably the biggest upset in college football history, just because of the high hopes Michigan had.
Sure.
My upset doesn't deal with any top 25 team, but I think that according to the Vegas spread, this is one of the bigger upsets there. I have Temple over Notre Dame. Notre Dame was 4-8 a season ago. They opened up with that game against Texas, which was a thriller, which they lost. Ended up 4-8 at for the rest of the season. The odds are against Temple, and they lost to Son Reddick, their best defensive player from a season ago. But I do think their defense is still very, very talented. And Brandon Wimbush, quarterback for Notre Dame, he's very shaky. And I think Temple's defense is going to be able to find a way to help their offense get really good field position for their offense to score over Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is not your dad's Notre Dame. It's not your grandpa's Notre Dame. Okay, this is not as talented as a team. They haven't been. I think since they had Manti Te'o as their
that was their last really good year.
Yeah, that was their last really good year, and it's still been very spotty over the years. So, a great tradition for Notre Dame, but I think that they've fallen off lately. So give me Temple. Give me Temple sneaking in and winning that game.
That would be pretty big. I think Temple has a new coach and everything like that. That would be huge for that program, just to go ahead and open off that new campaign, new career, I guess, for that program right now with this head coach. I think with him coming in, I think that'd be huge. That'd be huge if they could pull that off for sure. So I think we're gonna go ahead and move on from college football. Obviously, college football is moving. It's gonna be big. It's a big weekend.
That's what we're gonna be talking about mainly over the next couple of weeks, at least until the NBA season
until NBA kind of kicks off. But we are gonna talk a little bit about NBA.
Yes, we're gonna be Yeah, we're going to be bringing on a good friend of mine, Andruw Johns, onto the show. He's going to, like I said, going to be our first guest for the open line, which, again, like we said, we wanted to kind of be a regular segment here on the show. So it's going to be open line with Andruw. Going to talk to him for about 5 to 10 minutes about the Kyrie IT trade. Welcome back to the very first installment of Open Line, a segment that we will be having regularly on the show. We'll just be having a conversation with some good friends of ours pertaining to sports. And this week, our very first guest, Andruw Johns, a very good friend of mine. I went to high school with him. We did some DECA conferences together, which, if you guys don't know what that is, it's pretty much business marketing in high school. Won some regional competitions with him. So a very awesome guy, awesome to talk to. You can follow him on Twitter at AndrewJ. Andruw, how are you doing today, man?
Good, man. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. Super excited for this. Obviously, we're just talking about college football, but we're also very, very excited for the NBA season to tip off, just because of all the crazy trades that have been happening, all the offseason moves. Speaking of crazy trades, as I mentioned before earlier in the podcast, you are a University of Washington fan, and Isiah Thomas is obviously a former point guard, former player for University of Washington, who is making it big in the NBA now. He just got traded from the Boston Celtics to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It just went final late last night. So everything that got traded, Kyrie Irving went to Boston, and then Cleveland received Isiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, the Nets 2018 first rounder, which was what originally was supposed to happen. And then they also got a 2020 second round pick, which doesn't seem like much, but it was an extra compensation for their concern about IT's injury. So, Andruw, overall, what did you think about the trade? Did either team get better? Was it pretty fair? What are your general thoughts about it?
I was truly shocked to see that the Celtics traded Isiah Thomas, especially coming back off that season that he was having, scoring that many points, and being a back-to-back All-Star, I believe. But I honestly think the Cavs probably won that deal because they got Isiah Thomas, they got Jay Crowder, they got Zizic, and they got the 2 picks.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot to give up for the Celtics. But the Celtics are looking like a whole different team. It's
like a facelift. It's like a facelift, honestly, when you look at it. It's crazy how much turnover there is, especially just from one year to another.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They got rid of Isiah Thomas, Avery Bradley, a lot of role players too, right?
Yeah.
They did, yeah. They kind of...
Jay Crowder, Kelly Olynyk. Yeah. I think the Avery Bradley trade overall, granted, Isiah Thomas was great, but I think the Avery Bradley trade is going to hurt them the most because they didn't retain a guy who can kind of, fit his role and kind of step up to it. I don't think Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart are as good as Avery Bradley. Yeah, I think that they kind of their shooting guard position definitely got worse. But I think overall, when you look at it, they improved at almost every aspect of their starting lineup, even though they changed so much out of it. Do you think now Isiah Thomas, fantastic player, do you think that hip injury is going to be a big concern going forward?
I honestly don't. I think he'll come back next year and he'll be just as strong as he was the year before, if not even better. He's going to have a bigger chip on his shoulder. Every team he's been on has just kind of not done him correctly, The
right.
Kings traded to Phoenix, and Phoenix traded him to Boston, and Boston traded him to the Cavs.
Poor guy, man.
Yeah. As good of a talent as he has shown he is, I mean, just to keep kind of getting him bounced around, it's kind of crazy to see.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. But I think he's gonna have a great season. I mean, he's playing with the best player in the NBA right now, and the Cavs are looking pretty scary next year.
Oh, they definitely are. Yeah.
Even though they're starting the very first game with Derrick Rose, just because Isiah Thomas is supposed to be out for another 3 months, so they'll probably be having Derrick Rose. I saw this tweet earlier. It said the Cavs are one Derrick Rose knee tweak away from having 36-year-old Jose Calderon being their starting point guard.
Oh gosh.
Which is kind of worrisome, but at the same time, you have LeBron James on your team.
Absolutely.
You're going to be okay. And they throughout all of this, they were able to retain Kevin Love. I think that's the craziest part. I thought Kevin Love was going to be gone from the team after everything. Mm-hmm. They keep him, Thompson. They had to give up Kyrie, but they get Isiah Thomas in return. I think they're looking all right,
I think so. And Andruw, I have one question for you as well. Do you think this is enough to keep LeBron in Cleveland? Do you think with Isiah Thomas coming there and getting this draft pick and all this sort of stuff, is it enough to kind of convince LeBron we're still willing to build around you, or is he going to bounce next year?
I don't think he bounces. I think he stays for the rest of his career. I'm really skeptical of him leaving, mostly because he saw what it did to Cleveland last time he left. So I know he wants to win more, but I think Isiah Thomas and Jay Crowder are 2 solid pieces to add to him. And even in the next offseason, they could make more moves. You know what I mean? They can get rid of Mon Shumpert or J.R. Smith and clear up some cap room and make a push for someone. Or even if Dwayne Wade gets bought out by the Bulls and a small vet minimum, there could be a lot of moves that keep LeBron there. I think he stays.
You know what? Yeah, this has been tearing me up too. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? Because I'm super torn on it. I want to say LeBron will stay. I want to agree with you, Andrew, but all signs are kind of pointing to him exiting. I don't know though. That's the thing. Like LeBron is as big of a figure as he is. His personal life kind of stays personal for the most part.
It really does.
It's kind of difficult.
He is a private person. He does have a house in L.A. It is kind of weird. He has a house out there. I do think he'll want to stay in Cleveland. It's just a matter of he's not a big fan of letting know, they'll let go of David Griffin, the GM. I don't think he was big on that.
I think Dan Gilbert is a terrible owner too. I think he realizes that every day.
I think that's a pretty. You're not alone in that opinion. I think a lot of people think that. And he wrote that nasty letter about LeBron. That's still out there. Like you can't take that back. You can't take it back.
I can't believe LeBron came back for like. I think the main reason LeBron came back to Cleveland was because he knew Kyrie Irving was going at least to be a superstar, and he knew that they were going to be able to get Kevin Love. So he knew that was going to be a recipe for greatness. Mm-hmm. But I think that it was such a he had to get over such a huge hump to come back to Cleveland because of Dan Gilbert. Like with that letter going out and the disrespect that he had towards LeBron for leaving, he was a free agent. He had the choice to go to and you write that letter. LeBron is more of a man than me because I couldn't have gone back to that situation.
Yeah, I would have held a grudge for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
They don't really get him any help. I understand why he left for Miami. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's way more talent, better chances to win. And I mean, look, he won. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He ended up coming back, and that's the other thing. I think him losing that last finals against San Antonio, his last year in Miami, really pushed him over the edge to leaving. And that's the thing. I don't see him going to the Lakers. I don't. I think that if he's going to go to any team, and I've said this before, if he's going to go to any team, this is one of the reasons he went to Miami. He's going to go to a team where he doesn't have to compete with anybody's legacy. Because if he goes to Los Angeles plays for the Lakers, he's going to be compared to what Kobe did for LA. He's going to be compared to what Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's going to be compared to all of those greats. Going to Miami, who are you going to compare him to? Dwayne Wade, who only had one chip there, and he was second fiddle to LeBron when he got there, right? Goes back. He's going to go down as the greatest Cleveland Cavalier already is in history. That's his legacy. So if he's going to go to an LA team, it's going to be the Clippers. But I don't think he's going to go because I think that's where he's going to define his legacy. That's why I don't see him going to like the Celtics, the Lakers, any of these high caliber teams, or I guess high tradition teams that I have a lot of history in the NBA. Yeah. That's just my input, though. I could be totally wrong. I didn't think he was going to go to Miami when he first went to Miami. So it's going to be interesting.
I think you have to find a team with enough talent to compete against Golden State, though, as well.
That's true. And yeah, that's the other thing. Does he want to go out west, or does he want to stay in the East? Because the East is such an easy road to get to the finals. Yeah, especially now with all that talent leaving.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And the Western Conference is going to be good for years to come with Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins for the Timberwolves
and Karl Anthony Towns.
Anthony Towns. But how could I forget about Karl Anthony Towns? And then you obviously have Westbrook and Paul George. Even if that duo doesn't stay for a while, Westbrook is going to be in Oklahoma City most likely for a while. And then obviously Golden State's going to be fantastic. Houston, even if Chris Paul only plays for this 1 year, I do think that he'll end up staying for a little bit longer. James Harden is going to be the face of that franchise for a long time, and he's very talented, and we can see what he does. So the West is going to be tough. Speaking of the West, let's get into some Western Conference talk with you, Andrew. Give us some projections. You and I have talked about this ourselves about it. Give me some of your projections. Give me, I guess, your regular 1 through 8, or if you just want to do 1 through 5. What teams do you think are going to be playoff contenders in the West?
Clearly contenders. I mean, of course, you're going to have Golden State. It's like a 99% they're going to be one. No. And then I'd probably say, no matter what, San Antonio, just because Greg Popovich is coaching and they still have a lot of talent on that team, and they picked up Rudy Gay. I think they'll be 2 or even 3. But I don't know, man. The West is going to be very interesting next year. Houston, I could see making 3 or 4 because of Chris Paul and James Harden alone. It's a lot of talent there. Um, Utah, I see taking like a step back. I could see, man, maybe I don't know, man. That's rough. I
It's
could see
tough, yeah.
Oklahoma maybe making a 4 or 5 seed, and then I see I don't know, man. I don't know. New Orleans even could make a decent playoff push because they've got.
They could, yeah. That's the thing. Like the new projections came out and by Vegas, and which you can believe however much you want out of those projections, but New Orleans was projected to be the 10th seed, and they're such a talented team, you know. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. Andrew? Who do you see making that 8th final spot?
The 8th final spot. I honestly see the Trailblazers at 8th final spot.
Okay.
Damon Lillard and CJ McCollum. They're close to home. They're a crazy good backcourt, and then they have Nurkic, and they've added Swanigan and Zach Collins, right?
Yep.
I see Swanigan making his push to the starting lineup and taking Noah Vonleh's spot potentially.
I do too. Yeah.
I think they'll be really slept on this year, but I think since the Western Conference is so stacked that they'll make that 8th seed, and then they play really good against Golden State. So if they make an 8th seed, I wouldn't say they'd upset them, but I'd love to see them upset them.
What do you think, Matt?
We talked about this last week, when we kind of break it down the West and how deep it was. I could see Portland making that spot. I could see Denver Nuggets making that spot. Maybe even the Hornets. Not the Hornets, I'm sorry, the New Orleans Pelicans. That's kind of, those 3 teams are kind of going to be battling it out for that last spot, I think. Phoenix is still a few years away, I think. Josh Jackson obviously is going to improve them down the road. Right. I think Timberwolves will probably be the 6th seed. With how much talent they have, I think they'll be a 5 or 6 seed. And that's saying something for how good they are.
They're going to have a really good team. Jeff Teague, Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins,
right?
Karl Anthony Towns, Jamal Crawford off the bench, and what's his name? Is it Shabazz Muhammad off the bench too?
Did he go back there? Yeah.
And Shabazz Muhammad. Yep, you're right.
They'll be pretty dangerous out west. They have a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, and a good amount of vets. You know what I mean? Jamal Crawford off the bench. I just think it's going to be a very, very special year in Minnesota.
I think so too. Yeah, and but then the other thing, I think my only knack with Minnesota is Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins are, other than Jimmy Butler plays a lot better defense, they're virtually like the same player. Pretty much. I mean, Jimmy Butler can shoot the ball better than Wiggins can, but Wiggins drives the ball better. So they're both, very good scorers, but they're both like 2 guard slashers. They're both like a 2-3 combo that kind of slash the basket. So that's going to be interesting to see who plays the 2, who plays the 3. I'm guessing Butler will play the 3 and have Wiggins at the 2, but I don't know. That could flop back and forth. But I do think Minnesota is going to be a really good team. And I actually, the more I think about it, here's the thing about San Antonio. Great team. Kawhi Leonard, top 5 player in the league, no doubt. Greg Popovich, arguably the greatest coach of all time in NBA history. Popovich and the Spurs are the only team to get away with surrounding a superstar player in his prime with Patrick Mills and Rudy Gay coming off an ACL tear. And I mean, they got Pau Gasol back though, right?
They did. They re-signed. Yep.
Which is good. But I mean, you're surrounded by your starting point guard. I mean, Tony Parker is at the end of his road. Backup is Patty Mills. Not a knack on him, but I mean, you're surrounding him with, a guy who's going to be a backup on a lot of teams, who's probably going to be your starter. And then Rudy Gay is, I mean, he's Kawhi Leonard, less scoring and less defense. Really, he's like the same form of Kawhi Leonard, really. So it's interesting. So I don't think San Antonio will do as well. The more I think about it, the more I think San Antonio will be like a 3 or 4 seed as opposed to 2. But I'm still excited for the Western Conference. See how it play that. Andrew, do you think the NBA should abolish the Matt had a really good argument last week about the NBA abolishing conference playoffs seedings and just making it the best 16 teams. Would you like to see the NBA do something like that?
I mean, yeah, man. Personally, the East is so terrible. It's not even funny. I think a lot of conference teams would get a lot of higher seeds, so I'd see it being like a more fair thing. The East is just such a joke, man. It's a cakewalk. I mean, it's the same teams in the playoffs every year. It's not much change. Look, you had the Celtics, 2-3 years ago that had a negative record and made the 8th seed. they were like, what was it, 41 and 43, or was it 41 and 40?
Usually the Eastern Conference always has a team with a losing record make the playoffs, and it's just wild to me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'd love to see him abolish the conference playoffs and make it the best 16 teams.
Yeah, I would agree too. And obviously, I know Matt's stand on
I'm
that.
big on that. Please, Adam Silver, if you're listening, Adam Silver, which I hope you are, retweet this, by the way. But
on
please,
his private account.
Please do that, please.
I'm on the same page as you guys. Andruw, one more question before we let you go. Great talking to you. Which duo that's playing together this year, in your opinion, won't be playing together a year from now? Isiah Thomas, LeBron James, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, CP3, James Harden. I guess you can throw in Kyrie and Gordon Hayward in there as a duo. Out of those four guys, which of those do you see not playing together a year from now?
Most likely, I'd say Paul George and Westbrook. Paul George has kind of made it evident where he wants to go, and I think Paul George will go to the Lakers. I can see that, and I think that would be the biggest one that I couldn't see him playing again next year. Not that I'm not excited to see him play this year, but I could see Paul George leaving next year, and even maybe Westbrook leaving. I could see it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's, out of those four, I think that's the biggest one. LeBron, if he leaves, I don't know. I don't know really what to say where he'll go. I mean, of course, everybody's saying he'll go to the Lakers as well with Paul George, but like Dayton, like you said, he might not want to live up to that legacy kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of those big things to kind of look out for. So I definitely agree. I think Paul George will go to the Lakers next year. Everybody's saying, oh, he might not, but I don't think Oklahoma City, a smaller market like that, can do as much for him as LA would.
That's the key. That's the key. When he got traded from Indiana, because the whole point of Paul George, there's two main reasons Paul George wants to go to Los Angeles. Obviously, he's a hometown kid. That's one reason.
Right.
The second one is because I think he was really tired of being in a small market for the Pacers, Indiana.
Right.
Because he also, if you remember, he played college at Fresno State, very small time school in terms of grand scheme of things in the national conversation basketball wise. So he was in pretty much a small market college, small market NBA team. And then they trade him. Kevin Pritchard trades him to arguably an even smaller market in Oklahoma City, which I think kind of rubs him the wrong way in a way, because I can't explain any other way you would take Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis for Paul George. Like, how is that fair? I think obviously Kevin Pritchard kind of wanted to stick it to Paul George in a way. I don't know if teams really do that. You know what I mean?
I can see that.
But Oklahoma City, even though they are a small market, they have, and I haven't experienced it firsthand, just what I've heard, they have one of the best fan bases in all of sports. Very passionate, very loyal fan base. You saw what happened when Kevin Durant left. They wanted him to stay so bad, and when he left, they went out for his blood. Obviously, that's the negative side. The positive side is like when Russell Westbrook won the MVP, they were all over him. And they still are. And I mean, rightfully so. That's how fan bases should operate. But sometimes they don't do that quite well. Like with the Celtics, you would think that they would be – and I know a lot of them are devastated that Isiah Thomas is being traded. But he gave so much to them. And he was such a great player. But they are – I think a majority of Celtics fans are saying, nah, man, Kyrie Irving, I'd much rather have him than Isiah Thomas. Kyrie's not going to give you the same heart that Isiah Thomas gave you on that team. That's why I feel so bad for Isiah Thomas, because he put in everything he could for the – Kings, got traded. Then he went to the Suns. The only reason he was traded there was because they had a backup of point guards, because they had Eric Bledsoe and Goran Dragic. And so, they wanted a little bit more out of that. And I was thinking he was going to finish his career with the Celtics, because he went from six-man to starter, got traded again.
Six-man to starter to all-star, man.
To all-star. Oh, yeah, to arguably I'm surprised he didn't make an all-NBA team. I was maybe expecting him to make an all-NBA team last year. But either way, great talent-wise. So, I think that Paul George has a better chance of staying with Oklahoma City than most people are thinking right now. And it's also funny that we're talking about this because the Lakers just got fined $500,000 for tampering with Paul George and his agent, which I think is really funny. They're just kind of a rookie mistake by Magic Johnson, trying to be all buddy-buddy, trying to be a celebrity and whatnot, which can't fly if you're an executive. But it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. I think this year of NBA basketball is going to be one of the best we've seen ever.
Agreed.
Totally agree.
We know the finals are most likely going to feature Golden State and Cleveland again, but I think everything that happens beforehand is going to be a whole lot better than what happened a year ago, obviously. And I do think we finally have a chance for a team to sneak in out of the East, because Cleveland, I think, I wouldn't say they got better from that trade.
Really?
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know, honestly.
I think
Jay Crowder's a good two-way player, and Isiah
Jay Crowder's a great two-way player. I like Jay Crowder, but I don't know.
I think they definitely got the better end of the deal. They definitely that deal, but I don't know that they definitely improved, their team. They're losing Kyrie. Kyrie's not like, Isiah Thomas can make up for a good bit of Kyrie, and Jay Crowder can do a little bit more on that for that team than Amon Shumpert and J.R. Smith, but I don't really see Cleveland. I don't know that Zizic is going to be good. I think maybe in a couple of years that Brooklyn pick is going to be a big, especially if it's like a top 2 or top 3 pick. That's a big pick going forward. But I don't know that it helps them this year as far as getting better. And Boston may be able to sneak by this year. I don't know, or anybody else in the East.
I think Washington could. We were talking about this.
We were last year, yeah.
I think the Wizards might be the one team, to me at least, that can defeat the Cavaliers. I think that they match up better than Boston does against Cleveland. But I don't think Cleveland was able to address their most dire need, and that was, I think that there were 2: backup center, backup point guard. And now their backup point guard is going to be their starter, Derrick Rose, while Isiah Thomas kind of heals up. I think, and obviously when Tristan Thompson goes to the bench, they put in Kevin Love, Channing Frye is their backup power forward. I don't know. I just don't like how their bench is kind of operating now.
I mean, they still have Larry Sanders, don't they? Or did they not retain him?
I think that they didn't retain him, but I do think that they still have Andrew Bogut.
Do they? Yeah.
Yeah. Larry Sanders got cut like 2 weeks after they signed him for some reason.
I'd like to see him pick up a vet for a vet minimum, and I mean, there's plenty of centers, that still board, and like Andrew Bogut for say, he could still make his impact. And put him off the bench, or even when Isiah Thomas comes back with Derrick Rose off the bench, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I might be underestimating how well of a team Cleveland is going to be.
They have LeBron. It's kind of hard to go against LeBron. Yeah,
it's like you have LeBron. He's going to be able to. He led Boobie Gibson and Mo Williams to a finals 10 years ago. I mean, come on, what more can you ask for out of him? And that wasn't even him in his prime. That was him 4 years into the league. He was 22 years old. He led that roster to a finals. Incredible player. But Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. Your Twitter is @AndrewJ. And hopefully we have you on in the next couple of weeks. But especially when the NBA season actually begins to start, we'll have a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, Andrew, thanks so much for coming on today, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to have you on, man.
Next week for Open Line, we'll probably have Dean Mullen to talk some college football. And up next, before we wrap up the show, we are going to be doing our Leaving You With This, as well as signing off. So stay tuned.
And now, thanks so much, Andrew, for coming on. Dayton, thanks so much for setting that up. That was a good talk for sure. We're gonna go with our closing segment, Leaving You With This. This is something, again, we do at the end of the show. It's kind of like 30 seconds to a minute where me and Dayton both just kind of go with, leave you with something that's on our minds, sports related or not. And this week I want to leave you with Hurricane Harvey and the effort that J.J. Watt is doing down there for Houston. Obviously, the star defensive end for the Houston Texans. He set up something. He wanted to try to raise $5 million for that, and he was working with a bunch of different people. I think he set out $1 million. The NFL set out $1 million. I think New England Patriots sent out $1 million, and the Titans sent out $1 million. And now I think he actually has raised his goal to $10 million and all this. It's all to go money towards Hurricane Harvey, to the relief efforts, to sending food out there, sending semi-trucks full of supplies for these people that are devastated. I mean, there's so much. You turn on the news and all you see the pictures, and it's devastating. You haven't seen anything like that in such a long time. I think there's actually one city near Houston that's completely underwater. Those people pretty much have lost everything. So it's definitely really scary. But I want to give a big up to J.J. Watt. If you can donate. He has a link on his Twitter profile to how to donate. You can also donate through the American Red Cross. You can donate through. I believe if you have AT&T, you can text Harvey to 90999, it adds $10 to your phone bill, but that money will actually go into the Hurricane Harvey victims. So big up by JJ Watt, AT&T. If you can send anything, even a little bit, it'd be great. Obviously, we don't want you to send $1 million if you don't have it. But it's just a great effort by him to get that out there, and that's a great movement that he's going for.
Yeah. Shouts out to him, and obviously all of our thoughts are with everybody affected by Hurricane Harvey down in Houston and the surrounding areas. So obviously tragic stuff. And I was talking to Tyler on the Who Dat Dish podcast on Monday. We were just talking about it's stuff like that happens, and unfortunately the only thing that you can do is to help people who have already been affected.
Right.
There's not much you can do to prevent that type of stuff from happening, obviously, because it's Mother Nature and everything like that. So the fact that JJ Watt was so driven to raise that much money, I think he actually got over $10 million as we're speaking now.
Nice.
Fantastic stuff. Everybody who has donated, thank you so much, and everything. For my leaving you with this, I wanted to tie it back in with college football. Obviously, the most exciting game, arguably, that's going to come out of it, the biggest game for sure, is Alabama-Florida State. That is a top 25 matchup. And I also put in West Virginia Tech into the preview games that we wanted to do because it was a top 25 matchup. I want to see more top 25 matchups opening weekend because when you have these teams go up against cupcake teams, and I get it, the game benefits the FCS or the lowly team as well. They get money for playing them, and the teams get pretty much a bye-week easy game. But I wish that happened more in like week 2, week 3. For opening weekend, I think it should be a lot more top 25 teams going head-to-head because, granted, a lot of the schedules come out after teams have already – or I guess the schedule comes before the AP top 25
it does,
most of the time because teams will schedule. So that's a little bit difficult. But I wish that there were just more either top 25 teams going head-to-head, or if we implement some in-conference games just to make opening weekend more exciting so that we don't have to watch a lot of these high-power teams play some cupcake teams. Save that for like week 2 or week 3 when I want to watch some really good games to open up the college football season. But that's me being nitpicky. I think that this weekend is going to be incredible, but I really do want to see more top 25 teams go head-to-head in the first week. Because that would be kind of easier to schedule, opening the weekend and whatnot.
Oh, it definitely would. I definitely agree. Get some bigger name schools.
Yes,
play head-to-head. Yeah, you might lose, but at least, just play against good competition.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Because then you have teams like Alabama, Florida State going head-to-head in the very first week, and then you have, again, BYU going up against Portland State and Georgia going up against Appalachian State. Right. It's just these things. Stanford went up against Rice, and they won 62-7.
Blowout, yeah.
Come on. Granted, yes, great for you guys for, getting a easy game in week 1 and tougher schedule, but save that for towards the middle. I think that it would make the entire season a lot more interesting.
Absolutely.
Overall. So
100%
but that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Be sure to follow Andrew on Twitter at Andruw Johns. And be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Dayton_Brown_. Matthew is McFatty93. That's MMCFATTY93. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, the podcast on Twitter, Hoops and You Pod on Twitter. We'll be back, obviously, next week recording. You can find us, if you're probably listening, on YouTube for now, iTunes in the near future. And, again, thank you so much for the support. Be sure to like this on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel for sure. That'll help us out the most. Comment if you have any questions. Seriously, tweet at us. Comment below in the comment section on YouTube. If you have any questions, any requests for anything, just let us know. Matt, again, fantastic week doing this with you. I'm excited for the future.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's been a blast. Again, like I said, 2 weeks in, I think it's been really great so far. Definitely looking forward to bigger and better things as we move on with this. And again, yeah, like Dayton said, follow us on social media, ask us questions. We would love to maybe have a segment where we just answer Twitter questions or talk about stuff that you guys want to talk about. So if you have anything, let us know. Just tag us and comment on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter, anything like that. Again, a big thanks to Andruw Johns for joining us today. So we will see you guys next week. Week 3, kind of recap this week and also look into the college football universe for week 2.